Hi, everybody. Welcome to the quarantine film series. I'm your host, Kabir Segal, coming to you live from the ATL, Atlanta, Georgia. I want to say hi to everyone watching around the world. Also, hello to the people watching downstairs, my mom and dad. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Thanks for tuning in. So, look, this quarantine series is all about shining the spotlight on creative people of all types: musicians, filmmakers, authors, poets, jugglers. I mean, everyone's welcome. We need to be there for each other during this time of pandemic. And, if you can, please support the projects you learn about on this broadcast. I also think it's important to think local, help those in your community, whether it's a local film festival that may have been canceled or the local bookstore. I think this is going to be our first bookstore proprietary on the store. So I'm very excited about that. And, the local musicians in your community, let's try to be there because the audiences and artists, we need each other during this difficult time. All right, so a couple things. If you want to learn who will be on the broadcast, it's pretty simple. Just subscribe to my social media platforms. We're available pretty much on all platforms everywhere. In addition, let us know where you are watching from. Where you're watching from. We got Atlanta in the house. We got Milwaukee in the house. We got the Midwest in the house. Let us know where you're watching from. Drop a comment, and let us know city, state, county, area code, zip code, province. All you Canadians, got provinces up there. All right. And also in Australia, I think there's provinces too. So no, there's not provinces. Oh, there are. Okay. So I have a man in my ear who's my geographical check. And if you have questions, I don't have to ask all the questions. Drop a question in the comment field, and we'll be sure to opine to your questions, no matter if you're watching now live or on the rebroadcast. All right, now for the best part of the show, you get to meet the wonderful artist, and he's truly a remarkable individual. He's a hyphenated individual. He does many things, and I think we need to rename the show the Hyphenated Series because so many people on the show wear multiple hats, and he truly does wear multiple hats. He's a filmmaker, songwriter, artist, producer. See what I mean? We're going to talk about some of his recent films, like MILraculous and Portrait of a Free Spirit. He has a new album out, The Cares Pack, and aforementioned, he runs his own bookstore. So please welcome the multi-talented Darick DDS Spears to the quarantine series. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I loved what you're doing here. I'm very honored just to be in this whole ensemble. This is great.
Of course. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you. First, got to ask you, Darick, how are you doing during this time of pandemic, and how has it affected some of your projects?
Well, I'm resilient and I'm a survivor. So the pandemic, I actually have, as an artist, I've gotten a lot of inspiration from the pandemic. I think that this is the greatest time for artists to timestamp. I always say timestamp with what's going on right now. We'll never forget this time period, and I think it's up to artists to help us never forget this time period. So with me myself, I've been very inspired by what's going on. I mean, I've been very touched by certain things, angered by certain things, humored by certain things, and then I'm able to draw that inspiration from that stuff. So yeah, and I also think that it has carved more focus because when you're quarantined and when you're able, it seems like everywhere you're going is kind of like some type of resistance, or you have to wear a mask and do this and that. It kind of makes you pull yourself back and get into your own free space and create. So that's how I've kind of been affected by it.
I hear you. And tell me about your typical day in quarantine. How do you spend it? Do you wake up at the same time? Do you go to sleep at the same time? Is there a daily walk? Are there daily vitamins? What's the routine like there?
Yeah, the routine. I get up in the morning. Of course, I say my prayer to the Heavenly Father, and I try to get some exercise in, and then I try to just set the temperature of my day. I always try to set the temperature of my day because some days I could wake up like a little upset, or man, this and that. And I try to set the temperature to make sure I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good day. And I go and I set myself some projects, and I go down to my bookstore or start working on just different music or something like that, and that helps me get through the day. And sometimes I deviate from that path if I'm feeling like more creative in a certain area. If one day I'm just more into a music feel, I'll start working on more music. And if I'm more into a writing feel, I'll start writing more, or into film mode, I start thinking about different stuff like that. So yeah, that's my usual everyday schedule.
Yeah, I'm glad you have one. Um, tell me, so this is the quarantine film series. So let's talk about some of your film projects. MILraculous. What is this project about? Why did you want to turn, I guess, your story into a film project?
Well, what happened was every time I would travel as an artist, I kind of got when people hear the word Milwaukee, the city I'm from, people always say, "What is that? What is this? You know, what is that? You guys live on farms, this and that." So I kind of was, I had put together an album called Milwaukee a couple years back, and then I decided to I had kind of been like documenting my some of my touring, like I was in New York, the Bronx. I was going to Atlanta. I was doing some different things like that. And I was kind of like documenting my travels from Milwaukee and even to the Grammys. And I thought it was a great journey because most people where I'm from in the inner city don't get to see these walks. So I was like, let me put together a project called MILraculous just to inspire and shine light on other artists or just the musical journey. I feel like when we create an album, if you can't break your album down and explain each song or what was behind it, sometimes it's like, that shows that you really didn't put that much thought into it. So I kind of wanted to break down. So MILraculous is like a short music documentary that kind of talked about putting together an album and how it came together. It was a great story. I was performing out in the Bronx and met a producer out there, and we were kind of going back and forth. I was traveling every 3-4 weeks to New York to try to put the album together. We were actually working on an album called The Message, and it didn't work out. We were just trying to bridge the two worlds of New York and Milwaukee together. And it wasn't a fallout with being a producer. We just had different ideas. And a lot of those songs ended up becoming the album, which is on iTunes and everything, called Milwaukee. It was kind of just like a audio visual documentary type album of where I come from in Milwaukee. So that's how MILraculous came about.
And what was the audience response? What was the audience response or reaction to this project?
Well, when I got the reviews, they loved it. People loved the album. I even created a book, a music book, like breaking down it. And I think people really gathered who got it. It was on a Grammy ballot as well. People really liked it, and they just found it raw, and the stories kind of like, whoa, I didn't know it was like that. And that's what my whole purpose was. I didn't want to put it out there. And sometimes we as artists put stuff out there, we think, oh, we're going to put it out there and it's going to blow up. I wanted it to penetrate culture and be able to, like, years later, people just pick it up and say, wow, wow, this is really documenting what's really going on in Milwaukee. And even in the city today, with a lot of the violence and a lot of the everything that's going on. If you pick up the Milwaukee album, you could listen to it even back then, and it's kind of like the soundtrack for the city. So that was really what I love when people picked that up and said, "Okay, I get it, and I think this is a great album." So that was the response that I got.
Got it. And you've been at this film thing for a while now, which is cool. You're not sort of just coming lately to it. A Look Within the Prison Walls. I see that's a 2012 release. Talk about Pastor Dennis and why it was important to create a project here.
So I created a project around, it was my brother. He actually had come home from prison. He had spent some time in Leavenworth prison, and he transformed his life. And, I knew I used to drive out to see him a lot. And I knew it because I watched his transformation from a hustler, a drug dealer in Milwaukee to really turning his life over and doing something positive. And even to this day, he runs a church in Atlanta. In Atlanta, it's in Georgia. So I was like, man, we got to put together something, to document what you're saying, so you could speak to people, because he had started a prison ministry where he was helping out a lot of people, and he got out and he wanted to spread his message. And I was like, well, anybody can change and transform. They just got to see it. So I wanted to put together a raw documentary of him just talking about some of his struggles and showing him the transformation from him being that guy to even showing clips of him preaching and a whole different audience. And I felt like real proud of him, because it was times as a kid, I mean, even growing up, I felt like I was going to get that phone call in the middle of the night, like, hey, your your brother's not here with us no more. And to this day, I still remind him, and first, before putting that out, it was on Prime for a couple years or whatever. Putting it out, I wanted to just tell his story a small version, and we're going to actually do some more with him, and making it more of an expanded documentary, because he's done so much now, where he's running a church down in Atlanta, in Georgia, and I'm like, your story is just, back then that was just a snippet of your story. Now you got so much more you got to tell, So I'm like, I love documentaries. Those are my favorite type of films, because they tell the story, and I'm a storyteller.
Yeah, certainly. When you make a documentary, there's going into it, you probably have a sense of what the story is, but then when you're in the edit, sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
So, like in this story in particular, how did the story change? And how do you, as an editor, because I see you're editing, it's amazing. You're doing everything on the film: shooting, editing, directing, writing.
Well, I started off in film and theater school, and then I started to do a lot of the reason why I do a lot of the stuff myself is because I started out, maybe not like most film people. I was the guy who would be called to film funerals and weddings and church services and stuff like that. So I was the underground guy who was putting together these DVDs for people in their houses. And sometimes when people would die, I would put together a short documentary about someone in their family and give it to the family, and they would love it. So I started doing all of this stuff, and I was like, well, now we're digital. Maybe I should put some of this stuff out. So what happens is, when I'm putting it together, I become part of who the person is. And you're right. Sometimes it changes, especially with my brother. It changed because it went from him just traveling and he getting out of prison and not knowing what he was going to do with his life to, now his family, he has more kids, and him and his wife together now have started a ministry together. When before it was just him underneath some ministry that was kind of pigeonholing him. They didn't want him to speak as much. And I got a documentary also on Amazon Prime right now called Secret Success Stories. And I actually have he's speaking on one of the stories, kind of a little bit more about his journey. So it changes. It always changes, because you start somewhere, and by the time you get to the middle, you're thinking different. You're like, okay, now I got different ideas. And even as a filmmaker, sometimes you have to adjust and be like, okay, I started filming this film. Like, I'm working on a documentary right now that I started filming earlier this year. But by next year, like by now, we're already adding different stuff. So it's like the story is kind of changing a little bit. So it always, you just got to go with the vision and make sure that the storyline just really spills over to whoever's watching it, because I feel like the storyline is the lifeline of a documentary. Most times it's like, that's what captures us from little kids when we're reading stories, little children's stories. We just love the storylines. So that's what I try to focus on.
Understood. And Portrait of a Free Spirit, is that in the same vein?
Yeah, well, I'm a free spirit, and it began the journey, the Portrait of the Free Spirit, and I'm actually in the midst of also, that's a project that, some projects I start and I'll do, but I want to redo and add more stuff to it, because I feel like most artists, even during this time period, even though in quarantine, a lot of us feel like we're suffocating, because a lot of people are actually free spirits, and I'm a free spirit, and I like to work, and I like to work in a space and have no limitations with my art. So that's what the Portrait of a Free Spirit is about, is being unlimited in your art capacity, and getting out whatever you want to do, even as an artist or writer or whatever. You have to be a free spirit a lot of times.
Yeah, and you're not just a free spirit, you're a multi-talented one. So let's switch gears and talk about your music career. The CARES Pack looks like your most recent release. What's the concept behind this project?
The CARES Pack, I'm so excited. And the first track with Natalie Jean, the story behind that is I actually woke up. I woke up at 2:00 in the morning one morning and went into my studio and created the track. I mean, I kept hearing the hook, and I kept hearing the lyrics, and I actually recorded it. I had to do it. It was in my house, so I had to record it like kind of quiet. I didn't want to wake my kids up. So He Gonna Make a Way. The CARES Pack is actually, I was looking at it because I always try to make it with the time. So the timestamp when you have the Congress giving the CARES Act, I was like, I'm gonna put together an album called the CARES Pack, because I want to give it to the people and make sure that they understand everything inside of it it's because I care about you. It's a stimulus package to you. I want to stimulate your mind, body, and soul. So that's what the CARES pack is all about. And it dives into subjects of He Gonna Make a Way is the first track, and it talks about us running basically from a virus we can't see, but believing in a power more greater than ourselves, which is God, and He's going to make a way if we trust and believe in what He's doing, and just diving into concepts of the album. Friends is a song where you find out, even in quarantine, you find out who your real friends are. You start to really reevaluate your life and think about what is good for you, the fat that needs to cut off your life, and it's a reevaluation. The whole album is that, and it's a stamp. It's a timestamp that where someone could go back 20 years from now and be like, hey, what was going on in 2020? And they can play the CARES Act and be like, wow, okay, this is what was going on. So Searching was another song, and that's just, you know, and we're all searching for something. And sometimes it's just right in front of us. You know, we're always looking, but it's right in front of us. So that's what the album is. And I put it out there just for the love of the people.
You're the stimulus that we all need. Stimulus check. What is your workflow? What is your musical workflow in terms of, and I know it sort of depends maybe on the artist you work with, but in this case, you're the releasing artist. So what is the workflow from composition down to soundscaping out to release?
I'm always making tracks. So I'm always making songs, and I'm always making music. And sometimes I can make 2 or 3, I can get to a zone making 2 or 3 beats a day. And then like while I'm making them, I hear it and I soak it in my, and it soaks into my veins, you know, it comes from my heart. And so a lot of times I can hear someone on it. If I'm working with an artist, and I'll call them and say, hey, I hear your voice on this song. And sometimes as a producer, you have to guide them. So I have to guide them. A lot of times I create like demo versions of the song and say, hey, I think you should sing the hook like this. This is how I'm hearing it. And, you know, you listen to it a few times. And so a lot of times I start with the beat, but I'm able to create what I hear in my head. So if I hear something, I can create it. I can create the sound of it. And that's a gift. I thank God for. I'm able to do that. So that's my specialty. I start with the music, and sometimes I just start with I write too as well. So I'm writing, and sometimes I might be like, I got this song I need to really get and you know, match it with a track or something like that. So
that's cool. You can hear it and create it. Can you also hear a track and recreate it?
Yes.
You know, that's like the ultimate, I think, being able to
I've done it many times. It's been songs that I love. That's like my favorite song, and I'll just redo it my version and just redo it my way and just be like, I want to do it that way. It's a few songs I still want to redo. That I'm like, I love, you know. So
what's your digital audio workstation?
I work with Pro Tools. I work with Logic. I work with Reason. I work with Fruity Loops. I actually went to school I'm a certified audio engineer, so I went to school learning a lot of these programs, these DAW systems, and at one point I had a spot in the mall where I was trying to train people in Milwaukee on how to use these systems, but they didn't get it. At the time, they didn't get what I was trying to do. So it didn't go so well. So they was like, what is this? You know, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. What's in your preferred vocal chain?
Vocal chain?
Yeah. Do you have if you're doing vocals, do you have like a certain, I know every vocal is different, but how do you have any effects that you like to put on it, or a vocal chain, preset chain that you put on it?
Yeah, I like to use a few different. I like to use echo sometimes, reverb. I like to use it all depends on the voice, but sometimes I'm a layerer. I like to layer vocals. It doesn't even matter if they're hip hop lyrics or whatever. I like to layer stuff and add effects in the background that's underneath. So it's almost like if you really listen to the track, you can remove the vocals. You can almost hear like if I'm you can feel like you're like in the middle of a street. You can hear like certain, like you can even hear like a rat crawling. So I like to add stuff in it. So you're like, what is this stuff in here? You know, if you really strip the beat down, it's like, oh shoot, okay.
Yeah. Everyone listen to the animals in the tracks and Darick's track crawling around. No, that certainly comes across in that. And before we let you go, tell me about the bookshop.
So Darick Books is the first bookstore of its kind. I actually started writing. I started writing different books. The whole bookstore came For me, I wrote books or whatever, and I started to have a book box subscription service, and I had like customers, and I only had 12 books at the time. So I got to writing and diverse writing, and decided to open up a bookstore where all the books in the store and even music, everything is written by me. So I did it to inspire, and I knew people at the time were going to be like, whoa, what's going on with this? So it actually, ironically, opened the brick and mortar opened in January, right before the pandemic hit. And it's been actually, ironically, it's been one of the greatest years for me within, the news contacted me, and they had me on, they're still playing it on the news. I was getting people calling me, which I'm very grateful for, that they're seeing my story on the news, and people are coming into the store, and different books have been changing people's lives. I write different type of books. So it's really, I did it for the artist, the free spirit. It's a free spirited place where you come in and you're like, wow, okay. And I help, the services I give to people are book writing services, helping businesses, helping create a business, workshops, and doing music and film. I do all those things out of my store. So it's not like a normal store. So you come in there and you see my stuff, but I'm really offering you my help and my services on your projects. So that's what a lot of times I feel like it's been a great thing for my community as well. So
totally. Well, I want to thank you, Darick. I think we have your website. We can show it maybe one more time, and everyone check out darickbooks.com. And please go check out his great website. Also, you can find him on Spotify. Just type his name in anywhere, and you'll probably find him.
Kabir, I want to say you're the most awesome. He's very humble, but Kabir, I always call him. He's a kindred spirit. He's a.
This is what we creative people have to stay together. So
great.
Everyone check out Darick's projects. Check him out on Instagram, on Facebook, everything. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. And I know we're gonna after this. We're gonna get up after this quarantine thing. We're gonna have to go out and have some good time. Have a good time.
Yeah, we'll have to get out and have some go out to the farms of Wisconsin, hang out together. All right, yeah, that's our show today. Everyone, if you want to know who'll be on the show, subscribe to my social media and make sure to take care of the art. The art will take care of you. Bye, everyone. Good night.